Hello fellow builders and welcome back to the bench. I figured I'd give you an update on where we were on our Mandalorian helmets. Where we are is where we always seem to be. We're sanding. Sanding and more sanding and more sanding, and without a doubt this is probably about the messiest part of the whole process, but as much as you want to fight it, as much as I fought it, you can't have a top quality finish without having a top quality prep. You got to do it right, or else you'll never get to that point where your stuff is just like spot on. Here's the lucky part for us. If you're going to do this, you don't always want it to be like pristine and brand new. You want it to have some dents and dings and some weathering issues. So if you have a little bit of stuff going on in there, if you don't get all the little things out, you can accent that as some kind of weathering deal. But here's where we are. We got it sanded down. Pretty much the body of it is pretty good. I'm just going to do all this back. I want that to be all smooth. I like the texture of this first part here. So I'm probably going to just leave this. I'm going to say I'm going to leave it unsanded, but to help this whole process along, instead of just using a regular primer, I'm using a filler primer, automotive filler primer. And so what this does is it goes in there and it does what there's some filler in there and it fills in, but not a lot. It's going to just give your top layer, it's going to be able to fill minor things, and you may have to go coat after coat after coat. But another problem that we were addressing is on this helmet, like I said, when it was printing, as it was printing in layers and trying to do this angle, you had that stringing problem where the strands just weren't sticking together and laying down. There's no one good way to fix it, and actually I'm tackling it in a couple of different ways. Okay, so if you remember when this printed, as it built up the layers, it was stranding on this top layer because this one was printed upside down. That's right. So it was trying to print out into open space. And so to fix that issue, I figured I had a couple of different options. One, plastic welding, which is kind of what I started with, just getting a soldering iron or something like that and getting it probably about, so I've got a really nice soldering stations where I can control the temperature, so I put it at about 300 degrees. The plastic, I think when it prints, is probably somewhere around 225, so I had to get it to melt, but be quick or else you're just going to run through. Plastic welding is also a good way to put two pieces together. You can put your two pieces together and plastic weld it from the backside along with glue to make a stronger connection there. But I was trying to use the plastic welding to smooth that out, and it didn't quite work the way I wanted it to, but it did smooth it down a little bit. So the next thought was to use my trusty Bondo, it's around here somewhere, and to put the Bondo and sand it down. That kind of worked a little bit. It can work in some places and not in others. It just wasn't working quite the way I wanted it to. So my third option was to use the crazy glue, because the glue that I use is Zap-A-Gap. It's a thicker crazy glue, and it's a gap filler. So I put some of that down and sprayed it with the kicker, and then I could sand it down. but it still wasn't giving me that nice, smooth, flat looking surface area that I wanted. So I ended up doing this, which is putting a layer of glue down and then taking some super thin styrene and gluing it down. So now I actually have a nice smooth top surface there. I still need to do this other side, but I just worked my way around, so I just need to cut this outside off, cut it off on the inside, sand it down a little bit, and then I've got a nice flat, and then I can fill in my gap, fill in sand in on the edge. So it's not one thing isn't gonna work always. Sometimes it's gonna be a combination of things. The top here, like I said, with the Mohawk, I had to, since the Mohawk on this one is a lot lower and a lot thinner, I'm actually having a little bit more trouble rebuilding it. So I'm putting a layer of the Bondo down and then letting it dry and then sanding it just slightly and then putting another layer on top of that, trying to build that up. And so once it's built up enough, I'm just going to go on ahead and sand it down in shape and scribe those lines back into it. We should be good to go. If we're lucky, you'll end up with this guy. So this was the other helmet. And I think it's come out pretty good. This top level here, I'm not going to have to do this. I'm not going to have to do this trick with it, because this is, although I could very easily, since that's already level, I could put that styrene down, lay it on, glue down, and cut it, shape it, sand it, and we're good to go. But I think I can just take my Bondo and just fill that in and sand that, and that'll be no problem. This is the one that had more of the eyebrows. So what I did with that was I did a combination of the gap, crazy glue gap filler, and some of the Bondo. And it's not a perfect edge, but it's enough to get it rounded off, and I'm happy with it. And the inside really doesn't matter. I mean, that's going to be where the visor is going to go anyway. So as long as we have a decent look from the outside, which I think we do, we're good to go. And I've done this one the same way. This part was all sanded down. You can hardly tell that this top cap is a separate piece. I think once we get a couple layers of paint, we won't even be able to tell. But I left the front part of this unbondoed because I like that texture. And so realistically, this guy's ready for paint. I might figure out what I'm going to do as far as the head attachment inside before I do that. It would be easier to do, and before I put a finished coat of paint on there, where I'm not fighting or trying to be gentle with it. I can get that in there, and if there's anything else that I need to do, I can fix it before I get to the final painting. So just thought I'd give you a little bit of an update on these two helmets, and if I will try to give you a weekly update. Maybe that'll be our Friday night thing. Update on the helmets. We'll try that. Let's see what happens. Alright? So, until next time, go build something. Alright, talk to you later. Bye. See ya. Bye. Pew 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 pew.